Okay. Okay, so let's do it again. So what is this movie again?
12 Angry Men.
12 Angry Men.
Okay, 12 en colère in French. So what are those people doing? They are voting as well, but they are voting for a very different purpose. In these first two examples, people are voting to express their preferences, and what we need to do is to aggregate preferences, whether for finding a president or for finding a place to have dinner. Here, there are no preferences. People have no preferences about whether this man is guilty or not, and whether they should go to prison or not. They just want to find the truth. Okay, so that's very different. So there are two fields of social choice. One which is about aggregating preferences, and one maybe less mainstream, which is about aggregating beliefs or opinions, and we call that epistemic social choice. An extremely rough history of social choice. So usually, especially when we talk from Paris, I mean, we say that the birth of social choice is just at the time of the French Revolution. So those who are old enough so that they attended the first PRAIRIE Colloquium, they remember that. With these two famous men, Marquis de Condorcet and Chevalier de Borda. You know Condorcet, probably you don't know Borda. But these were really the most important first two people who worked on social choice, and you will see these names again in the talk. And then, so that was a pre-formalized social choice. Then in the mid-50s, social choice went extremely formalized, maybe too formalized, and this became a subfield of mathematics and mathematical economics, with the highly celebrated Arrow's theorem and other so-called impossibility axioms. This is not uninteresting, but I mean, these were mostly say abstract and non-constructive approaches to social choice that were saying things like, if we require this and that assumption, then it's impossible to find a rule that fits. Yeah. And then from the 1990s and even more in the 2000s, the computation, I mean, computer scientists and AI researchers came into play and went on with more constructive views of social choice by designing new mechanisms and protocols and rules, and also dealing with new problems that emerged at that time. Okay, so okay, that's a brief history with the timeline. I mean, if someone wants to ask me to answer about why theology is there, I will do that. Okay, so
Jérôme,
yes?
Sorry if I may. Somebody has suggested that you go full screen or remove the side panels, just because they're making it hard to sort of see the slides in full.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I forgot to do that. Yeah. So, so very importantly, so AI and computer science not only have contributed to develop algorithms for solving pre-existing problems, but they have contributed to reshape social choice by also raising new paradigms, by defining new objects of study, new applications, and also bottom-up approaches. I mean, starting with real problems and abstracting away from them rather than going top-down. So again, that's the poll. And so of course, the topics that I selected, the potential topics are a sort of biased choice. But I mean, I have only 45 minutes, so I cannot, I mean, this is a huge topic. This is a huge field of research. Okay. So let's have a look at the poll. Yeah, but then I have to change. Can you see the poll, or are you still seeing the PDF?
No, we are still seeing the PDF, and actually we did not see like the full screen. Go full screen. It remained the same. I take the opportunity to say
okay,
it.
so okay, so stop share.
Yeah, maybe that's.
Then I mean, rather than studying social choice, I should study Zoom. Okay. So share. Then this. So you're seeing the poll, yeah, right?
Yes.
So you see that, I mean, okay, so results. Okay, so first, so the rule that I'm using is an interesting rule. Perhaps I will explain the rule, but it depends on actually whether I explain the rule or not depends on your selection. So liquid democracy, epistemic voting crowdsourcing, social engineering, and social just and moral AI. So I will not explain the rule, but let me still try to explain it very quickly. So the way we do is we use a rule that is called Chamberlain Courant. So let me go back. So what we do is we look for a selection of 4 topics. And suppose that it's the first 4, okay? These 4, liquid democracy, epistemic voting, communication protocols, and multi-winner elections. So what we do is that for each of the voters, we look at the most preferred of these 4 topics. So for instance, for this voter, that would be liquid democracy, and it's ranked second. Being ranked second means 4 points. I mean, it's 5 for ranked 1, then 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 0 for the other ones. So that the selection would be 4 points, 5 points for this one, and 4 points for this one because the best is ranked second, and so on. So for each voter, I look at the best choice in the selection for that voter, and this gives a number of points, and I maximize this number of points. So it's a highly non-additive rule that aims at satisfying the highest number of people. Yeah. And so again, the selection is liquid democracy, epistemic voting. Okay, so let me start with liquid democracy. So let's go back to the PDF. I may, if at some point I want to change my mind, I mean, I will allow myself to change my mind. Yeah. So stop share, and then I can do share again. And then you can see the full screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Liquid democracy. So before talking about liquid democracy, I have to say one thing about social choice rules. That would be mostly voting rules, because we are mostly going to speak about voting. So I'm a computer scientist, as you said. So being a computer scientist, I care about input and output. So output is quite easy. Most of the times it would be an alternative. Okay, so candidate. I say most of the time because sometimes we can randomize, okay, but most of the time it will be just one alternative. And the input is more diverse. So depending on the choice of the designer, we can have a very simple input, a uninominal input. Suppose that the question is the collective decision to be made is choosing a temperature in the room. So this is not for Zoom talks. I mean, this was made for non-Zoom talks. Yeah. So choosing temperature in the room, you can ask every voter to give their preferred temperature, or to give a ranking of all possible alternatives, okay? Or to give an approval matrix, which means that for each temperature, they would say yes or no, I agree or I don't agree. Yeah? Or to give a numerical evaluation. So here we furthermore assume that the sum is constant, doesn't have to. Yeah? So you can see, I mean, given the input format, there are different kinds of rules. Okay, so, and in the rest of the talk, we will see different kinds of rules with different input formats. Okay? Liquid democracy. So probably everybody knows about 2 forms of democracy, the first and the third one. Representative democracy is what you do when you elect deputies, members of parliament. Yeah, you elect people, and those people are going to make decisions for you. So you trust them. Well, hopefully you trust them. Okay? And then they're going to take decisions for you. And if you're not happy, you're going to choose other people next time. Okay? Direct democracy is totally the opposite. There are no delegates, and you choose. Questions are asked to everybody, and you cast a vote on every question. So every time there is a decision to be made, you have to vote yes, no if it's a yes, no question. And so of course you have more power and decisions, but it's a huge amount of work, because it means that, I mean, 10 times a day you have to vote. So in between, we have something called liquid or fluid democracy. These are almost synonyms, where you have the choice as a citizen, as a voter, you have the choice between voting yourself on an issue or delegating to someone else. If you don't have time, if you don't have expertise, okay, you vote for someone and you trust. And the person to whom you delegate may depend on the topic of the question. Example. First example is about aggregating preferences. Okay, so committee election, who should be electing the new steering board? And then I can ask you, you want to vote yourself or delegate your vote to a trusted peer? Okay, so this is about classical social choice. What is more interesting maybe is about epistemic social choice. So I'm going first to tell you the topic of the question, and then you decide if you want to delegate or not. So I tell you the topic of the question. You will be given English idioms. You see, I'm not a specialist of English idioms, yeah, and asked to identify their meaning. And I mean, the slides were made a few years ago, and this person, probably you totally forgot who he was. Or does anybody remember?
Boris Johnson.
Yes, Boris Johnson. So maybe, I mean, for that question, I very much trust him. Maybe perhaps it's the only question for which I would trust him, but for that question, I would trust him. So I would delegate to him. But if the question is, you will be given, sorry for the typo, you will be given pictures of landmarks and asked to say in which country they are, I don't trust him and I want to vote myself, okay? So this is liquid democracy for epistemic social choice, and it works well. It works well. So if you look at this right-hand figure, you see that there was someone who did experiments who said that if you aggregate by simple majority, and you try to measure the adequation with the ground truth, I mean, what is the frequency with whom you make the right answer, and you see it's much better if we allow delegations. And this is interesting on a small scale example. This is how the graph of delegation looks like, and you see there you can delegate to someone who will delegate to someone, and importantly, delegations are transitive. So if this delegates to that one, who delegates to that one, then this one delegates to that one. And these numbers here are expected degree computed as the average proportion of correct answers when they decide to vote themselves. But then there are lots of problems. So I mean, I'm not going to spend the whole talk talking about that. So I'm just giving you some examples of problems that researchers are working about. So the first one is delegations that leads nowhere. So I said that delegations are transitive. So if A delegates to C, who delegates to D, and D abstains, then this is a lowest vote. There is also this problem that, I mean, it could be the fact that some voters get a lot of delegations. You can see here, I mean, this one gets a lot of delegations, and having too concentrated delegations may lead to a loss of efficiency. So this is a second problem. And there is also, of course, the problem of cycles. What can we do in presence of cycles? The researchers are doing lots of things to do that. An example, not the only one, but an example of solution is ranked delegations. Yeah. So you can see here, B prefers to delegate to C, but if it leads to a cycle or to a lowest path, then the second choice of B would be to delegate to G, and H would prefer to delegate to F, but otherwise prefers to vote themselves and then to vote no, and so on. Yeah. And there are also things made to avoid too high concentration of delegations. So that was liquid democracy, and I'm going to stop here for liquid democracy because I have so many topics I have to talk about. So the second one in your selection was epistemic voting and crowdsourcing. Maybe because I'm going to speak about different topics, if you have a question at the end of a topic, you may ask the question. You may ask the question right now, and I will answer. Otherwise, of course, you can ask the questions in the end. Okay, so this is about voting to find out a ground truth. There is a ground truth, such as, I mean, is this person guilty or not? But that could be something more like that. I mean, this is a picture of Paris, okay, somewhere in Paris. And I'm asking you, in which of the 20 districts of Paris was this picture taken? And we're going to use approval votes. So you don't have to give a single answer. You may give several answers, several districts, several arrondissements. And then I'm telling you that you will get a reward if your selection contains the true answer, minus a penalty that increases with the size of your selection. So the goal is to give the incentive to people to be cautious enough so that everything they believe it possible, they would include it in the answer. But also, we don't want everybody to approve all answers, otherwise it would not be informative. Okay. So this trick is to incentivize people who know the answer to give only one answer, and people who are less sure to give several answers. Suppose you have an example like that. Okay, you have an output like that. So what can we say? You see, I mean, there are people like Anne or Fred who give only one answer. So it looks like they're more confident, okay? While Eva, for instance, is not confident at all. Okay? But between Anne and Fred, I mean, maybe we can say something, because Fred says 12, but he's the only one approving 12. I mean, so 12 does not look plausible because he's the only one. While Anne approves 18, but there are lots of people who approve 18. So between Anne and Fred, maybe Anne looks more reliable than Fred. So she looks confident and reliable. And also, I mean, David, who approves 18, that is also approved by Anne, who's considered confident, and who approves only 2 alternatives. David also looks quite reliable, and so we can have a circle of interactions like that. I mean, using an expectation maximization approach, where so there is this circle where we say that alternatives approved by many competent individuals are more likely, and individuals approving few alternatives, some of them are likely, are more competent. So you see this interaction. And so they're using some recursive computation. I mean, we come up with some evaluation of the plausibility of alternatives, and we would find out, and also an expertise of the voters, and we would find out that 18 is the most plausible alternative here. Do you think it's correct or not? 18 here. It is. Okay, so the next, so what can you, Francesca, can you remind me? So there was the social engineering, and the other one, the last one was. Let me have a look.
Let me get.
No. I have it. Yes, of course. Social and moral AI.
Social moral AI.
And then, yeah, okay. Okay, let me do social choice engineering. Okay, so what can you see now? Can you still see the PDF or?
No, we cannot. At least.
Okay, so again, share. Okay, the screen. Okay, you can see the PDF?
We can, not full screen though. Like we can see enough if it's no problem. We can see like the sites, the bookmarks and tools.
Share. And here?
Still
like this, full screen?
We can see what's around, but
not full screen.
Not full screen. Unless
come?
I'm the only one. I'm not sure. Maybe you can put the option like not share a particular window, but share the full screen. That's it, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yes. Okay, I do that. Yeah. So like this.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see?
Yes.
Okay.
Now it's full screen.
Yeah, so that's a topic that is very different from the other ones. So I mean, you all know that engineering is not pure research, pure fundamental research and engineering are two different things. That when you are doing fundamental research, you usually deal with one problem and you deal with it until the end. Okay. And the point when you want to solve a real problem is that the simplifying assumptions that you made to have an abstract view of the problem, they never fit. Okay. So this is exactly what happens here. So let me describe the context. I mean, most of you have come to Paris-Dauphine already. You know that there is a huge amount of construction work that is going to, I wrote 27, but now it's 28, 29. And there are 5 phases, and of course there are delays. We know more or less which offices will be unavailable at each phase, but there are updates. The initial official allocation is known. The final allocation is almost known, but they change it all the time. People will be moving in average twice. Okay, so there will be some possible compression at some intermediate phase. Of course, there are people who leave, people who join. The size of the groups evolves. Okay, so there is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of complications about everything. And the university asked us, people in LAMSADE, I mean a group, an operations research and AI group in LAMSADE, to help finding a fair and efficient reallocation sequence. So we tried, but that's very difficult because the complications that are present in this problem are about, okay, first, I mean, so you want to be fair, okay, but to whom do you have to be fair? To the individuals? No, I mean, there are too many individuals, and there will be individuals for which you will have, to which you will have to be unfair. They will have to move 2 or 3 times and not in the best conditions, otherwise you can't find a solution. Okay? So maybe it's better to try to be fair not to individuals, but to groups. Groups are research labs, teaching departments, central services. So that only is a complex problem that has been dealt with by the community. Okay, fairness to groups, but it's not all. I mean, there also the temporal feature. Okay, there's also uncertainty. I mean, everything changes all the time. Okay. So these are also specialties that are dealt with in some other works. Okay. Also, the preferences of the groups are highly non-trivial. They are highly non-additive because the groups want to have contiguous offices. So it's not enough to say they want this office and that office. I mean, they want contiguous offices. So the preference functions for the group is highly complex. Yeah? So there are lots of specificities that are usually dealt with one by one in the literature. And of course, there's absolutely nothing that deals with all these specificities, okay? So because of that, we have to do engineering, so to find some more simplification so that we're able to do something. And it's not done yet. I mean, we do it again and again because everything it changes and we have to redo the thing. Okay? So that was engineering, and now let me speak about social justice and moral AI. So I guess many of you know about the moral machine. Okay, so I can't ask you to raise the hand those who know, but for those who don't, the moral machine experiment is an experiment that revisits the trolley problem, where people are asked to choose between 2 scenarios. One scenario where an autonomous car kills a set of people with their attributes, like old or young people, rich or poor, women or men, and so on. and or another set of people. Okay, so it's fascinating. Also, what is fascinating is the cultural differences. Like, I mean, in different parts of the world, the criteria used are different. So I'm not going to comment on that. I mean, if you don't know, please have a look. It's really fantastic. Another maybe more concrete application, because I mean, choosing. I don't think that autonomous cars have an integrated software that tells them whom to kill. Okay? On the other hand, allocating scarce resources, especially medical resources, is something being done. Okay? So remember the COVID crisis. At the peak of the COVID crisis, in places like in northern Italy, in New York State, okay, there were not enough ventilators. And there were more COVID patients in bad need of a ventilator than available ventilators. So there was the terrible question of deciding whom to give the ventilators. Okay? Vaccines to a lesser extent that's the case also. And then there is the organ transplant problem, especially kidney. You know that the kidney example is special because since people need only one kidney, there are more kidneys in the market than any organ. But the question is how to choose the receiver. Okay? Also, they are given the different features of possible receivers. I mean, whom should we give the kidney? And then, so there is the first question is whether such questions should be automated or not, right? Or still be decided by humans. I mean, most of these tasks so far, they are decided by humans, but how far should we go in automatizing these tasks? So there is a beautiful paper of 2023. I mean, let me say that, I mean, this field is going so fast that, I mean, the first papers that appear in that are from 2018, 2019, and that was really the antiquity. I mean, 2023 is almost old, you know. So 4 reasons. So what Vince Konitzer says is that there are 4 reasons for which we may want to use to automate these tasks, these moral tasks. The first is speed. If you really have to decide where the car is going, if it's going to create an accident wherever it goes, I mean, maybe the car is going to decide quicker than a human being. So that's the first reason for doing that. A second reason is scale. If there are many reasons many decisions to be made at the same time, a human being will not be able to do so, and a group of human beings will not be coherent. So it may make sense also to use an algorithm. Related to that is complex optimization. I mean, if finding the right decision involves a complex optimization problem, as in the office allocation in Dauphine, for instance, which is not really a moral AI, which is still about fairness, then it may make sense to rely on an algorithm. And also, maybe the most important thing is transparency of process. If a human being takes the decision, maybe he's going to take decisions that are biased. Maybe the doctor who's deciding to whom to allocate the ventilators is going to help his friends, her friends first. Yeah. See, I mean, how do you call that in high schools? Proviseur, the person in the high school who decides who teaches when and to which class. Maybe she's going to allocate the nice classes to the people she knows, you know. So if we have a computer, if we have a certified software that does that, then it avoids these biased decisions. Okay. Then there are 4 well-known criteria in fair allocation. And so some of them make sense more than others for scarce resources or medical resources. But still, all of them, all of these four make sense. So let me enumerate these four. So utilitarianism means that we should try to maximize the global social welfare, the sum of utilities. We should try to find the decision that optimizes the sum of utilities. And the question is how to define the utility, individual satisfaction of an agent. So there are at least two different ways of doing that leads to totally different decisions. Either we say the utility for an agent is 1, 0, 1 if we save that agent and 0 if we don't save that agent. Or it could be the expected, sorry, there is something bad here. The expected number of years of life saved. I mean, here, whether you in whether you save a 90-year-old person or a 20-year-old person, it's the same. Here, it's not the same at all. Okay? And you can see a huge difference between maximizing this or that. I don't have to explain. I mean, whether you have to save 2 young persons or 3 old persons. Okay, this will take the second one, and this will take the first one. Okay. There is a choice to be made. The second family of criteria is what we call ex ante egalitarianism. Ex ante means that if there is any randomization involved, egalitarianism should be before the randomization. So egalitarianism then says that we give the same chances to everyone independently of their specific features, such as age, gender, origin, merit, and so on. Yeah. So an example of egalitarianism is first come, first serve. Okay, you come first, you get the ventilator. It's not very efficient because it means that some ventilators are going to be used by people who would be saved anyway, and some others to people who can't be saved. But at least that's a priori egalitarian. And there were people who tested which policies are acceptable to people, and a lot of people want to go to that, okay, to ex ante egalitarian solutions. A second kind of ex ante egalitarian solution is just random allocation. Okay? So you have at the current time, you have a set of people who want a ventilator, you just randomize with uniform probability. This is not very efficient, but at least it's perfectly fair ex ante. Okay, the third family of criteria is reward and merit. So some people argued, and in reality, also in New York State, Italy, probably some other places, it was, I think, written somewhere that medical doctors and people working for helping patients, okay, so nurses, doctors, and so on, yeah, should have priority, even if they're less ill, because I mean, not only curing a medical doctor. I mean, even if they would have survived, if you cure this person quicker, this is also a person who can help saving other people. So that's what we call instrumental value. Right? So that's another criterion. But it's also, giving priority to medical doctors is also a way of rewarding doctors. I mean, so that other doctors say, "Oh, okay, I see that if I become ill, I will have priority, so I can work a lot to save patients." Okay. The last family of criterion here is less relevant for medical resources. Is ex post egalitarianism. So you want everyone to have the more or less equal satisfaction after randomization, if there's randomization. So here we are in the domain of compensation. Like people who were unlucky in the past, they should be compensated by having a ventilator now. Makes less sense here. And so I think, yeah, it's the last slide here. So you see, you have these 4 big principles. Of course, in real life, I mean, they have to be combined. Okay, you probably do want to use 1, you do want to use 3, maybe a little bit of 2, probably not 4, but maybe yes. Yeah. But you want to combine them. The question is how to combine them, how to aggregate them. Who decides the way to aggregate them? Is it doctors, the state, the citizens, a combination of everything? Yeah? And how can we, if it's the citizens, I mean, how can we learn the preference of citizens? Yeah. This is what the moral machine does. I mean, there is this paper who does that for kidney exchange, but so far, I mean, we don't use societal preferences to guide these decisions. But in the future, should we do that? Okay? To know, I mean, which algorithm used for kidney exchange, should we ask people what they think? Okay, and there are tricky questions. Like, I mean, if you have the choice between a 60-year-old person who is in perfect health and has never been alcoholic, and a 30-year-old person who is in a bad health and because they're alcoholic, I mean, whom should you give the kidney to? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here. Yeah, I'm going to stop here. Yeah, so I have lots of other topics and questions, and yeah. I can ask questions. I can show things about more topics. Yeah. So I should stop sharing. Yeah.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Jérôme. Thank you so much for this this ensemble of short talks that give us a very good idea what occupies you. So let me open up the floor to questions. So given that we are a relatively small group, we can both, either you can write them in the chat or you can raise your Zoom hand and I will give you the floor orally.
Yes.
Maybe I can start with one question that is, of course, very close to my heart and most of what we're doing at Centre Internet et Société as well. Of course, being a computer scientist dealing with social phenomena is calls for interdisciplinarity, like at a practical level, I guess, also in your daily work. So can you please maybe tell us more on how, regarding this subject you just spoke about, how it goes for you, maybe at LAMSADE, within LAMSADE, if any, and more broadly, like in your research networks at PRAIRIE-PSAI, or what are your points of contact with the people who do social science, maybe in qualitative methods, like can interviewing people help in any way to support your work and stuff like that?
So if I was dishonest, I will tell you, yes, LAMSADE is really the place where we are doing it in an interdisciplinary way. I have to be honest, and it is true that we are in the interdisciplinary, but I would say the two disciplines that work on collective decisions in LAMSADE are computer scientists and economists. But economists are much more of the mathematical economics side. So it's very much formalized. I mean, between them and us, I mean, maybe the more mathematical are them. I would love to work with. I mean, I love economists. I mean, but still, I would like to work with other kinds of people. For instance, people who work on psychology for these societal preferences. I mean, this is absolutely crucial. Maybe, I mean, there is also the perception of fairness. I mean, how people perceive different kinds of fairness. So this relates to psychology and a little bit to philosophy as well. So that's it. I'm sure I forget lots of important things in there.
I don't know, maybe sociologists for this kind of.
So we have sociologists. We have one sociologist at LAMSADE. She's not really working on that, but yes, definitely. I see less clearly what they could do, but for sure they should be needed. Yeah. Salvador?
Hi, I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jérôme. That was super interesting. So I didn't mean to interrupt though. So I just meant to put myself on the queue. Were you more or less done? Okay.
Yeah, please.
So I wanted to ask you about the last topic that you talked about, the social choice and moral AI question. So I saw the Konitzer paper a while ago, and as I recall it, so my question is, what kind of AI are we talking about? As I recall in the Konitzer paper, he sort of talks about multiple things that we could do to sort of, but basically presupposing the methods currently fashionable. Let's call them deep learning, just as a catch-all term. The difficulty that this can pose is precisely that this moral domain is exactly the kind of domain where the decisions that are really tough and that really matter are totally out of distribution. These are the instances in which we find somebody who, satisfies the basic prerequisites for one thing or another, or fails to satisfy them, and yet they have a very, very unusual backstory. Something really spectacularly bizarre happened, so that one can argue that an exception should be opened, et cetera, et cetera. Given so we don't know a ton about the fragility of these kinds of things like language models to adversarial attacks. But for example, this stuff is well studied in vision, as I'm sure you know. So little perturbations that we can do to stimuli that then make a otherwise wonderful deep neural network, completely miss a characterization. Just how promising do you think current methods in machine learning are in terms of giving us something that will be truly useful and something trustworthy for moral choice of this kind?
So two answers. And the first answer is, so I don't know, I don't remember exactly what Vince Konitzer has in mind when he wrote his paper, but I would say it does not really apply to deep learning. I mean, when he says AI, it's AI in a very generous sense. And I would say that the kind of, I mean, when you try to design an algorithm for ranking patients for kidney transplants or ventilators, it probably does not come, it does not come from any deep learning algorithm, because there would be a huge data set which we don't have, and it would not be explainable. So I believe this is not what he has in mind. On the other hand, there are other applications totally unrelated to medical resources that are now being discussed, which uses actually social choice on top of deep learning algorithms to try to find more fair. Let me give an example. It will be simpler with an example. You know that there are now several large language models, and ChatGPT is not the only one. And there are more and tricky moral questions about generative AI models. When you ask questions such as, okay, tell me, ChatGPT, I live in Paris. Where can I find marijuana? Where can I buy marijuana? What should the generative AI answer? And so and different softwares would, so some would say, I'm not going to answer that question. You must not purchase marijuana, it's illegal. Some would say, yeah, okay, you go to Barbès and maybe the best product would be on that street. Yeah, I'm not sure that anyone does that, but some would be intermediate. Well, I first have to tell you that it's illegal, but usually when you want to know where to find good products, you would have to go to this community and ask, or you would go to that neighborhood. So you see, I mean, there are lots of different, I mean, what is best? So this is again a societal trade-off. The same for filtering content in social networks. And then using these human feedback, so you could try to randomize over answers and to get the feedback of human beings. Maybe some human beings are going to punish if you tell them, well, don't do that, that's bad. On the other hand, some other humans are going to punish the LLM if they say, go to that street. Yeah. And then it helps the LLMs to give answers that are more in line with the societal expectations.
Can I push a bit further, Francesca?
Yes.
Do we have time?
Go for it. Go for it.
So I understand. I think you're totally right. So in particular, your point about we're not stuck with a particular kind of AI that is especially used right now. But as I recall, Konitzer pointing out correctly, as far as I can tell, so unlike other domains in which we have pretty good generally accepted normative theories, like I don't know, mathematical reasoning, at least since Russell or whatever, we kind of have that down. It's an undecidable space, that we can explore in all manner of clever ways, but we have algorithms that can check, given a proposed solution, which could be garbled text. We have simple, completely deterministic, in fact, NP, P ultimately, because we can check whether an alleged proof is a proof or not. Relatively easy. The moral domain doesn't allow this, which is why, I don't know if it doesn't allow it, but we don't have a theory of morality. We don't have a norm that is mathematically precise. Whence my fear that it's going to be very attractive to go, we don't need a theory. We just need to provide, gather a data set with lots of great judgments, and then use the current, because we don't really have a theory of English either, as you know. I mean, there are some theories of fragments, little chunks of English, right? But my fear is that we might end up with these very strategies, which are then going to be, as far as we can tell right now, fragile. So you gave the example of the kinds of fine tuning that various models can make in the choices they can make. But as you know, there are strategies for jailbreaking that keep jailbreaking precisely these kinds. There are strategies for jailbreaking precisely these kinds of fine tunings. From some manipulate language in a clever way, embedding, if I were to ask you whether they get the model to think it's in some sort of hypothetical context. Others put in sort of little keywords, commands that might actually end up working. Just the fragility of the system worries me a ton.
It's difficult for me to have an answer to that.
Sorry, I'm asking you a huge question.
Because it's going a little bit far from my expertise. There is the question also of when you make a collective decision, for a reference, a reference society. So you can, if you build a model that is going to be used by everyone in the society, so it should take into account the preference of the whole society. Otherwise, it can be fine-tuned according to the kind of user that you are. So maybe a software that gives you the exact address of the marijuana bestseller is fine if the system knows that this answer is going to be fine for you. It knows enough about you, though. But it's I'm going out of my field of expertise here.
Thanks.
Thank you. I guess that maybe I have a follow-up question, and then I thank you for the question in the chat. I will ask it right away afterwards. Maybe just to follow up on the last example you were giving. There are currently talks in the AI regulation world, whether it is like a national, international, transnational, of like who should be in charge of having a word in those kinds of choices that have ethical and moral implications, like who should decide that a ChatGPT should be able to tell you where to find marijuana with a lot of precision in your city or not. So what are your thoughts on it, and like the extent to which there is a chance that computer scientists can inform that debate technically, but also being perhaps having there's like pedagogical initiatives right now. I have a feeling in several places that are involved into having engineering students and computer scientists more like aware from earlier about these implications of the work.
Probably it's not a question to computer scientists. It's more a question to governing bodies, and the question is whether these regulations where they should be bottom up or top down. Should they come from the states, even from the United Nations, I don't know, or Meta or Google, I don't know. Or should they come from the base? Should they come from the people? I mean, I know how to reformulate the question, but I'm not going to give an answer.
No, I mean, I was not asking you to be in anyone else's feet. It was really like from the standpoint of a computer scientist. Thank you.
There is a question in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jonathan?
So do you want to? So Jonathan says,
who decides the way to aggregate the front principles? Decision-making aid tools that support every.
So how far do the studies go on the study of social media?
Yeah, actually, this is, so we have, I mean, in my department in LAMSADE, we have people who work on aggregating points, not only preferences of different people, but preferences that varies with different criteria or attributes. So that is indeed related to your question, Jonathan. I'm not sure that there is I'm not sure that much has been done on that. Okay, so how far do the studies go? And as far as I know, not far. As far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are there any other questions, remarks?
Of course, you can write to me anytime if you have any question about, and also if you're interested about the topics I didn't talk about, then you can write to me.
Okay, maybe I have one final, well, maybe it is final or maybe something will show up in the meantime. So you have mentioned a lot of, like I say, social domains in which like what you're talking about can be applied and used. Do you feel that there is any like domain of the way society is structured or built in which these questions should be invested more and are not enough? Like should they be used more, these approaches to try and understand society in some domains in which it's not enough?
Climate change.
Climate change, okay. Yeah.
So infrastructure, public infrastructure. I mean, suppose that you want to build a new railway network in a country, or to build a fast-speed railway network. You see, I mean, of course, there's a limited budget, and there are choices to be made with having a star network, as in France or Spain, with everything connected to Paris or Madrid, or to have a more balanced network, such as in Germany, Italy to some extent, and it does relate to climate change, because whether you choose a network or not will not incentivize the same people to travel by train or car or plane. And of course, I mean, about finding policies to incentivize people to consume less, less carbon, and to have a smaller carbon footprint. I mean, there are also some very tricky choices to be made, and this is also about societal trade-offs. So I would say this is something to be done.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. Still no further questions or comments? Okay, then I guess that maybe we can finish the session here. Thank you so much, Jérôme, for coming and submitting the 10 small talks to us and delving deeper into a few of them. And hope to see you soon at a further PRAIRIE Colloquium. And so the next one, organized by, let's say, SHS-oriented people, will be organized by Salvador. And I think that Justine Cassel is the guest, right, Salvador?
A little too early to tell.
Too early to tell. Okay, so we'll be back to you on that. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Jérôme.
Thank you, Jérôme.
Bye.